I want to talk about something that most people read right past, and I almost did too. But once you see it, you'll realize it changes everything. And it's hiding in plain sight, in a story you think you already know. A story about a father, a son, a knife raised in the air, and a substitution that was supposed to make sense but doesn't until you dig deeper. This is a theological earthquake that's been buried under centuries of tradition. Genesis 22, 1-2. God tested Abraham and said to him, "Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you." Abraham obeys. He takes Isaac, the son of promise. Verses 7-8. Isaac said, "Behold, the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for a burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." This is the first key. Abraham prophesies. He doesn't say God will provide in a vague sense. He says God will provide the lamb, singular, specific, prophetic. Abraham binds Isaac. He raises the knife, and then verses 11-13. The angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy." And Abraham lifted his eyes and saw a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. The ram is a substitute, dies in place of Isaac. Now we already know this. Abraham names that place, "The Lord will provide," not just because God provided a ram for that moment, but because this moment was a foreshadowing of a greater provision yet to come. Now pay attention. This is the theological architecture of the biblical narrative. Sin demands death, Genesis 2:17. God provides a substitute, the ram. The substitute points forward to the ultimate substitute, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, John 1:29. This story is a prophetic enactment of substitutionary atonement. It's not just a test of a man's faith. It's a revelation of how God deals with sin. Now, let's turn to the Islamic narrative in the Qur'an. Surah As-Safat 37:102. And when he reached with him the age of exertion, he said, "O my son, indeed I have seen in a dream that I must sacrifice you. So look at what you think." He said, "O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, of the steadfast." Already there's a striking shift. Abraham had a dream, not a direct command, and the son is not named, though Islamic tradition overwhelmingly identifies him as Ishmael. Let's keep going. Verses 103-105. And when they had both submitted, and he put him down upon his forehead, we called to him, "O Abraham, you have fulfilled the vision. Indeed, we thus reward the doers of good." The test is passed. Abraham is praised for his submission. But then in verses 106-107, it states, "Indeed, this was the clear trial, and we ransomed him with a great sacrifice." And here's where the theological earthquake strikes. The Quran maintains the closest parallel to Genesis, right up until the moment of substitution. Both accounts reveal a father is commanded to sacrifice his son, and the father obeys. Then the son is spared at the last moment, and a substitute is provided. But watch carefully. In Genesis, the ram is a substitute for sin. The entire narrative framework is built on the reality that sin requires a death, and God provides a substitute. In the Quranic account, the great sacrifice, which Islamic tradition identifies as either a ram or the annual Hajj ritual, is offered as a ransom, but the Quran never explains what it's for. Here's the question that shatters the silence. If this was only a test of Abraham's faith, why was a ransom required? Let that sink in. A test requires pass or fail. Abraham passed. The drama is over. God could have simply said, "Stop. You have passed the test. You are a faithful servant." Done. Just a verbal praise and a walk back down the mountain. But God moves on by offering a ransom. Why? A ransom implies a debt. A ransom implies that something was owed. A ransom implies that someone needed to be set free from an obligation. The word ransom carries enormous theological weight here. In the biblical context, it's the same word that points to the ram and ultimately to Jesus, who said in Mark 10:45, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." A ransom is a substitutionary payment. It's a life for a life exchange, foreshadowed on Mount Moriah, freeing Isaac from being sacrificed. So when the Qur'an introduces a ransom without introducing sin, without introducing penalty, without introducing justice, it creates a theological orphan. The ransom exists, but has no reason. We need to ask the question the Qur'an refuses to answer, nor from any Muslim apologist whom I've been listening to for years. So this bears repeating. What was Ishmael being ransomed from? Was he being ransomed from death? But God commanded the death. If God commands it, it's not a penalty. It's a divine mandate. You don't ransom someone from a commandment. Or was he being ransomed from sin? But no sin is mentioned in the narrative. Abraham is obedient. Ishmael is compliant. There's no transgression to atone for. Was he being ransomed from the consequences of taking part in this test? But a test isn't a punishment. It's an evaluation. You don't pay a ransom to escape an evaluation. The logic just collapses. The Quran wants to have its theological cake and eat it too. Number one, it wants the drama of near sacrifice. Number two, it wants the language of substitution or ransom. Number three, but it refuses the theological framework that makes substitution necessary, namely sin and atonement. And here's what you need to understand, because this is where the entire thing breaks wide open. In Islam, there is no concept of a substitute for sin. None. Zero. Only the shadow that you saw in this story. According to Islamic theology, every person bears their own burden. You are judged by your deeds. Your good works weigh against your bad works on a scale. If the good outweighs the bad, you might, and I emphasize might, earn paradise. But it's uncertain. Nobody knows. Now, some might argue the deeds part here. Nevertheless, it's certainly not about substitutionary atonement. Okay, so here's the problem. If Islam has no need for a substitute, no need for a ransom, no need for a payment for sin, then why does the Quran introduce a ransom in the sacrifice story at all? It seems the writer went a little bit too far with following the Genesis narrative. You cannot import the language of substitution into a story when your entire theological system rejects substitution. It's like a doctor who doesn't believe in medicine prescribing a surgery. It makes no sense. It's a category error. The concept of a ransom only makes sense if there's a debt that needs to be paid. And in Islamic theology, that debt doesn't exist. So why is the ransom there? This isn't a minor detail. This is the whole thing. And here's the uncomfortable question that must be asked. Did the writer of the Quran include the ransom simply because he was maintaining the closest possible parallel to the Genesis account, keeping the structure of the story intact, but failed to realize that by including the ransom, he was mistakenly importing a theology that his own system couldn't support? Because in Genesis, the ransom makes perfect sense. Sin requires death. God provides a substitute. The substitute points to the ultimate substitute, Jesus, the Lamb of God. The story is coherent, theologically airtight. But in the Quran, the ransom is a loose end, a thread that leads nowhere. a concept that has no anchor in Islamic doctrine. It's not just the logic that collapses, it's the entire theology around salvation that comes into question. And if atonement for sin is necessary, then the whole story only makes sense when it puts the later sacrificial system with the Holy Tabernacle, later Holy Temple, and ultimately to Jesus Christ. The writer of the Qur'an flipped the script from Isaac to Ishmael, but he couldn't flip the grammar. He kept the word ransom because that's what the story demands, a substitute. But he couldn't tell you what it was for, because that would require admitting the very atonement theology Islam rejects. This is the theology earthquake hiding in plain sight, and we dare not glaze over this. Now, listen to this. Isaiah 53:6. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned, every one, to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. 1 Peter 3:18. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God. The ransom was paid, the substitute was provided, the Lamb of God took away the sin of the world. And this is the story Abraham saw from a distance and rejoiced. So to understand why you need Jesus Christ today, I strongly suggest you watch the gospel message that I linked in the description below. Follow through with that, and I will see you in paradise.